Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So I recently made a video about the early Muslims seeking refuge in Abyssinia, and people in the comment section were commenting, especially Christians, that what did the Muslims do to the Abyssinians afterwards, implying that perhaps when the Muslims later had power and authority, they came and colonized these people. First of all, it just shows that Islamophobia is still alive and ripe out there, because people are simply regurgitating what they've had about Islam, and they don't have access to real and correct information, because the truth is that there was no Muslim army that conquered the Abyssinians, because the Abyssinians had a beautiful and good rule. They don't have a corrupt leadership, because the Islamic conquest was all about removing corrupt rulership and establishing a Muslim state, a Muslim hegemony that can facilitate the preaching of Islam, so that people can voluntarily make their choice about Islam. And the Quran gives this indication about Muslims bringing about justice to the world and removing people from oppression. The Quran says in Quran chapter 4 verse 75, it says, وَمَا لَكُمْ لَا تُقَاتِلُونَ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ وَالْمُسْتَضْعَفِينَ مِنَ الرِّجَالِ وَالنِّسَاءِ وَالْوِلْدَانِ. And why will you not fight in the way of God for the oppressed amongst men, women and children? الَّذِينَ يَقُولُونَ رَبَّنَا, those who are saying, oh our Lord, أَخْرِجْنَا مِنْ هَذِهِ الْقَرْيَةِ ظَالِمِ أَهْلُهَا, take us away from this land of oppressive people. وَجَعَلْنَا مِن لَدُنْكَ وَلِيًّا, and grant us from yourself a protector, and grant us and also grant us from yourself a helper. So Muslims have been charged, when they are in a position of authority and power, to remove people from oppression and bring about justice to the world. And this is what the conquest was all about. We also have Christian writers around that time who had commented about the Muslim conquest, about how tolerant, about how it allowed plurality of religions, how it brought justice. So for example, Ishoyab III, who was an historian patriarch of Khorasan, he said in his letter to his friend Bishop, he said that the Muslims do not attack our Christian faith, rather they honor it, and they honor our bishops and our monks, and they confer great benefit to our churches and our monasteries. And also Dionysius of Telmar, who was also the Syrian Orthodox patriarch between 818 to 845, wrote in his chronicles that he talks about how when the Muslims took Sham is the area of Syria, Lebanon, Palestine, Jordan today. When the Muslims took over Sham, and Heraclius, the Roman emperor, mustered about 300,000 armies to expel the Muslims, he said the Muslims left the cities and to fight an open pitch battle with the Romans. And on their way out, they decided out of fairness to return the money, the jizya, the tribute, the tax that they had collected for protection and for giving welfare to these people. And he said that Abu Ubaidah, who was the leader of the Muslim army, commanded Habib bin Maslama to return the money, saying this, that we are both bound by our mutual oaths. The mutual oath from the side of the Muslims, that the Muslims are bound to give protection and to give welfare to the Syrian masses, and in return the Syrian masses are supposed to continue paying the tribute, the jizya, the tax. And on the flip side, the Syrian masses are supposed to pay the tribute, the jizya, the tax, as long as the Muslims continue protecting their lives, their properties, their intellect, and so on and so forth, and also provide welfare for them. So instead of them paying it to the former government, that's the Byzantium, rather they should pay to the new government who is on ground, that is the Muslim government. Okay, and he said if we return, then the tribute is ours, but if we don't return and we are defeated, then we are absolved of our oaths. This is an unprecedented demonstration of honesty and justice. And why are they doing this? Because of the teachings of Islam. They are doing this because of the teachings of Islam. And that's the reason why Thomas Arnold, in his book The Preaching of Islam, he stated the reason why the Muslim conquest was very, very successful and very, very rapid. Unlike other conquest in the past, the places, the regions that are conquered almost certainly change back to their former ways. So when the person who is orchestrating the conquest had died, or that generation had passed away, the people revert back to their former ways. But this is unlike in Islam, unlike in those regions where Islam conquered, they still remain Muslims till date. So there was something much more than that. So, and he said that the rapid success of the Arab invaders was largely due to the welcome that they received from the native Christians, who hated the Byzantine rule. So they hated the Byzantine rule. Why he states, not only because of the corrupt administration, but also and chiefly on account of the bitterness of theological rancor. So they also have theological rancor, theological differences. The Byzantine Empire, the state itself, had imposed or was going with what we call Chalcedonian version of Christianity, what we now call the Roman Catholic version of Christianity. While the provinces under these Romans were not following that. Many of them were Jacobite, they are monophysites, they are Nestorians, they followed other versions of Christianity. So because of this, they were persecuted, not only because they had a corrupt administration, they were also persecuted based on religious differences. So he said this is the reason why they prefer the Muslim rule over even their own formal government. And he said, to the Copts, as the Syrian Orthodox Christians are called, the Muslim conquests brought a freedom of religious life that they had not seen for centuries. So this showed that it was not about difference of religion. No, rather it was about establishing a Muslim hegemony so that people can hear the message of Islam and then make their own choice voluntarily, and all about removing despotic and corrupt rulership and so on and so forth. So, and that's the reason why when you take your mind back to when Muslims went to Jerusalem, the Sophronius, who was the Roman Patriarch of Jerusalem, demanded that he wants to see Umar, the head of the Muslims. And Umar, wherever he was in Medina, went from Medina to Jerusalem with his servant and with a donkey. And when they were entering Jerusalem, it was the time of a servant to mount on the donkey, and a servant, out of good gesture, wanted Umar to ride on it as a form, at least for him to gain respect. Umar declined that it is your turn to ride and you must ride, and it's my turn to walk and I must walk. And Umar walked right into Jerusalem barefooted, holding the rails of the donkey while his servant was on top. And people thought that it was his servant who was actually the Amir al-Mu'minin while he was the servant. This is how humble and how simple it was. We are talking about the head of the Muslim Empire who had stretched up to the lands of Byzantium, up to the lands of the Persian Empire, and down up to North Africa. He entered Jerusalem while walking on his barefoot. And then when he had a beautiful agreement with Sophronius that can be seen today. And I challenge anyone who is listening to this, who is sincere enough, just go online and read about Umar's agreement with Sophronius. It is there. And until today, if you go and take a tour of the church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem, you will see the agreement still written there. It is still there. It's a beautiful agreement where they are allowed to practice their religion, their churches, their monasteries. Everything is free. Everything is allowed to for them to continue. And Umar made sure that he sent ambassadors to outside the city to convince 40 Jewish families to come back and live in Jerusalem, because prior to that, Jews had been expelled from Jerusalem following the Jewish revolt, the first and second Jewish revolt, where they had been expelled by the Romans. And when the Christians took over, the Christians did not bring back the Jews, but Umar made sure that Jewish family come back, and he said they have a right to the land. They have a right to the Holy Land. So he brought them back. So if it was all about religious differences, why would Umar bring back Jews? Why would Umar allow the Christians to have their own religious activity, to continue their religious activities, and their churches and their monasteries are allowed for them? Why did he do so? Was he afraid of them? No. They were the ones in authority and in power here. So he was not afraid of them. It was because of what Islam had taught. Okay, why is there the concept of jizya that we don't? One of the alternatives is that just pay a jizya to the ruling body, to the ruling state, and then you are allowed to practice your religion and do everything as you want. This is because it was not because of difference of religion. If it was because of difference of religion, this option would not be there. But it was there. It has always been there in all of the Muslim conquests. So, and the reason is because the Quran says, Quran chapter 4 verse 58, Inna Allah ya'murukum an tuwaddu al-amanati ila ahliha. God is commanding you to return the trust to whom it belongs to. In the Quran chapter 2 verse 256, it says, La ikraha fi din, let there be no compulsion on religion. Qad tabayyana rushd min al-ghayy. The truth has become distinct from falsehood. The Quran also says, لا ينهاكم الله عن الذين قاتلوكم في الدين وأخرجوكم من دياركم أن تبروهم وتقسطوا إليهم إن الله يحب المقسطين. God is not forbidding you from being kind and just to those who have not fight you because of a religion, or driven you out of your home, from being kind and just to them. The verse continues, إنما ينهاكم الله عن الذين قاتلوكم في الدين وأخرجوكم من دياركم وظهر على إخراجكم أن تولوهم. God is only forbidding you from becoming allies to those who have fought you because of religion, driven you out of your homes, and help others in your expulsion. This is the only exception in Islam. This is the only exception. So Islam is one of the best things that have happened to humanity, and we must know our history.